Since taking over as Everton manager, David Moyes' side have only lost 5 of a possible 20 matches, and heading into the new season they're one of the favourites for a top half finish. But how will they set up and what will the new signings bring? Let's take a look. Starting off with this back line, which consists of a really strong core. Players like James Tarkowski, Jarrad Branthwaite and of course Jordan Pickford behind them is a really good core, and you really want to have that if you're going to push up the table. And then you have someone like Jake O'Brien, who excites me quite a lot as a player. I watched a lot of him when he was at Lyon and I thought he was one of the most exciting young centre-backs in the French division. Then he came to Everton, which at the time looked like a decent transfer because Jarrad Branthwaite was injured, but he just never got the minutes under Sean Dyche. And then thankfully David Moyes came in and has given him a new lease of life in that fullback role, but also forms a really good bit of depth if one of Tarkowski or Branthwaite gets injured, and he's going to be a very good player going forward for them. Then you have the midfield with Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall and Idrissa Gana Gueye. Quickly speaking about Dewsbury-Hall, because obviously he does play some of his best football more in this 10 role, and I do expect that during games, depending on the opponent, that Alcaraz might drop a little bit deeper and Dewsbury-Hall might go a little bit further forward depending on the opponent, and then other games we're going to have Dewsbury-Hall dropping a little bit deeper, Alcaraz going a little bit forward, and that depends on the opponent really, because I think those two will rotate quite well. But I think it's really just too harsh to drop either of them because they're both good enough and both deserve to be starting for Everton next season. But quickly speaking about the Dewsbury Hall transfer, because I think it's one of the most underrated transfers of the season. Everyone benefits from this deal. Dewsbury Hall gets to play week in, week out in the Premier League. Everton get a player for a pretty decent price that I think is instantly going to improve the team, and Chelsea get to sell a player for only a little bit less than what they signed him for a season before, and of course he was a big part in helping them to win the Europa Conference League. So everyone wins from this transfer, which I think is very important. And then if we look at the wingers, we of course have Ilian Ndiaye. And then we have Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish, of course, not confirmed just yet, but there have been a lot of rumours, and this is obviously depending on if he signs. But those players, and also if we put Dewsbury Hall back into this front four for a minute, those 3 players here in this attack, Grealish, Dewsbury Hall and Ndiaye, are almost carbon copies of each other, at least in terms of aesthetics. No socks, low socks, no shin pads, really hard to get off the ball, very good at dribbling. I mean, when oppositions come up against this front 3 or front 4, it's going to be almost impossible to get them off the ball without tackling them, without giving away free kicks. And then when they win the free kicks, you're going to have players like Tarkowski, like Jarrad Branthwaite, like Barry, of course, is already going to be up there, and like Jake O'Brien come in and join this attack, and you're going to be getting a lot of goals from set pieces next season. That's something that I do expect to see a lot of. But speaking about Barry really quick, because I also think that that's just a really underrated signing as far as strikers go. The striker market right now has got a lot of exciting players coming through, and I think Barry is going to be the next one that breaks onto the scene. He's someone that kind of feels like the perfect Everton striker. I think if you ask like ChatGPT or whatever to generate the perfect Everton striker, I think that they'd just show you a picture of Barry, because I think he's going to be the perfect signing for them. Also the fact they got him really cheap, I think he's going to be a really good player. And I think if you just look at this team, it's got the perfect balance of defence, with players like Tarkowski, Branthwaite, O'Brien, Pickford in that defence, and the perfect balance of the attack with players like Grealish, Dewsbury Hall, Ndiaye and Barry. And then if you look at that midfield, of course, you have players like Alcaraz and Dewsbury Hall when he drops a little bit deeper to help link up that midfield and attack and the defence really, really well. And I think David Moyes is the perfect manager to do so. And also when you look at the bench, players you have as bench options, players like McNeil, Beto, Garner, Keane, players I'm sure will play some good minutes next season too. This has a really good depth and a really good starting lineup. I think it's one of the most balanced teams in the Premier League right now, which is really exciting to see. Obviously Everton have their new stadium now, and historically they're a very big club, but the past 2 seasons they've been going through an endless cycle of not quite being in a relegation battle, but also not quite being safe, and just going through that over and over again. And like the last time they qualified for Europe, Wayne Rooney was still at the club, which shows how long ago that was. They deserve to be back up there amongst the big boys. We all know how big Everton are historically, so I think this season is the season where, with that transfer window that they have, with the manager they have at the club, they're going to establish themselves back as a top half Premier League team, and then the next year or so I think they are going to properly challenge and even get into Europe. If they got into Europe this season, I wouldn't be completely shocked, but I do think there are 7 teams better than them in the league right now, so I think it'll probably be a season or 2 before they're back in Europe. But this season top 10 I think is a very realistic goal. But let me know, Everton fans, what you think about this team, what you think about the upcoming season, because I think you guys are due a very good one. So that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. This is a brand new channel, so if you are new to the channel and you like this style of content, please do hit that like button and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts about Everton's season. Thank you for watching as always. Until next time, hive out.